WatchGuard support. This is Jane. How can I help you?
Hi Jane, it's Brad from example.com. I have a question for you. I've been asked to look into how my company can integrate with the WatchGuard public APIs. I just don't know much about APIs. Can you point me in the right direction?
Absolutely. We have a video explaining this very topic. I'm happy to include a link to it in your support ticket.
Oh, thanks Jane. That would be great. I appreciate your help. Oh good. Here's that tutorial Jane from WatchGuard promised to send. I sure hope it helps.
Welcome to the world of WatchGuard public APIs. WatchGuard public APIs enable third-party applications to integrate with WatchGuard Cloud. For example, you could integrate the AuthPoint authentication API with a physical access control system, so someone who enters the building must accept an AuthPoint push request after they swipe their badge. Before we go any further, make sure you take a moment to bookmark the URL for the WatchGuard community. It's a great resource for finding answers to questions and discuss topics with other WatchGuard community members. There are a few housekeeping items to do before you start to work with APIs. Make sure you have a WatchGuard Cloud account, have the WatchGuard API help open, and you'll need to find a way to make API requests. We recommend the Postman app, and we'll use it in this video. Postman is a tool that makes it easy to test API requests. Take note that when you integrate with WatchGuard API, you won't use Postman. Instead, you will write your own code to make those API requests and to handle responses from the API. I'll include a link to Postman at the end of this video. The WatchGuard API Help is a great resource for anyone who wants to integrate with our public APIs. It's a clear, step-by-step resource that is available 24/7. Take a look here. The 3 steps you see are all you need to get started with WatchGuard APIs. Let's take a closer look. The first section you see in the API Help is Enable API Access. So let's do that. To enable API access, open your WatchGuard Cloud account and select Administration Managed Access. Click Enable Access, then configure the read-write and read-only passwords. These passwords are static credentials that you use to authenticate to WatchGuard Cloud and request an access token. Great job enabling API access. In each request to a WatchGuard API, you must specify your API key, which identifies your WatchGuard Cloud account, and then an access token. This token authorizes API access for 1 hour. After an hour, you must request another access token. You will also need to download the WatchGuard Authentication API spec from WatchGuard Cloud. You will use this to create an API call in Postman to request an access token. To download the spec, click here. Take a few minutes to review the Get Access Token section in WatchGuard Help. This is where you'll find the information that you need to provide to WatchGuard Cloud in an API call to request an access token. What did these lines of code mean? Well, this is showing an HTTP request using curl, which is often used to show example HTTP requests with different parameters and methods in API documentation. When you integrate with WatchGuard APIs, you won't actually use curl or Postman to make requests to the API. Instead, your developers will write code so your apps make those requests. The first line shows that this is a POST request, which means we are sending data to the API. The -H lines of code are headers that you need to include in the request. The -D lines are data that you need to include in the request body. Let's move over to Postman to see how you can import the WatchGuard Authentication API spec. Click Import and then select the specification file you downloaded earlier. You'll want to import both the API and a collection. After the API spec is imported, on the Collections tab, you'll see a new Authentication APIs collection. The collection includes 1 request to generate an access token. Let's look at the access token API request. In the URL, you see the base URL variable, and if you hover over it, you see the URL for your WatchGuard Cloud region. If you recall a few moments ago when I showed you the block of code in the WatchGuard API help, I mentioned that the request is a POST request. Because of that, you can see the HTTP request method is set to POST. On the Authorization tab, you can see it set to Basic Auth. Why? Because the second -H or header line in this block of code tells you that you need to provide basic authorization. Type or copy and paste the read-write access ID from WatchGuard Cloud here, and the read-write password you created earlier here. On the Headers tab, you can see the content type header identifying the type of data we are sending to the API. The last thing is the Body tab, where you specify data to include in the body of the request. Set the grant type parameter to client_credentials and the scope parameter to API-access. At this point, you have created your HTTP POST request. Click Send to submit the request to WatchGuard Cloud. If everything is successful, you should receive a response from WatchGuard Cloud that looks like this. So what did you just receive? The access token you received in the response is what allows you to make API calls to WatchGuard Cloud. Now that you've successfully received the access token, it's time to set up some API calls and use the token. In the API Help under Multi-Factor Authentication, you can download the AuthPoint Authentication API specification to import into Postman. I'll include a link to the help topic at the end of this video. Let's make a test request to the AuthPoint Authentication API. I'm going to make a request for a specific user's access policy, which indicates which AuthPoint authentication methods the user can use, such as push, QR code, or one-time password. The path of this request includes two variables that I already set up on the Parameters tab in Postman. The Account ID variable is my WatchGuard Cloud account ID. The Resource ID variable is the ID of an API client resource I set up earlier in AuthPoint. The AuthPoint Authentication API Help explains how to set up an API client resource in the AuthPoint Management UI. I need to include the access token I received earlier in the authorization header parameter in Postman, and enter the access token in the token field, and also include my API key in the WatchGuard-API-key header parameter. In the request body login parameter, I need to specify the username or email address of the AuthPoint user whose access policy I want to see. Now let's send the request. You can see that the response from the API includes details of the user's access policy, including whether they can authenticate with each method. If after you send an API request, you receive an error message instead of the results you expect, navigate to the Status and Errors Codes topic in WatchGuard API Help. Compare the error code you receive with the codes and descriptions included in the Help topic. Some common reasons for API call errors are syntax errors, so make sure you are entering things correctly and don't include extra spaces. During this video, you learned how to enable API access, get an access token, make an API request, and where to find error messages. Before we close, I want to mention that WatchGuard's API product line continues to grow, so keep an eye out for new releases, including products that focus on setup and configuration options.
Wow, that was really informative, and now APIs make so much more sense. I definitely need to do some more research, but now I know where to start and what decisions need to be made. It'll be exciting to use even more APIs with our WatchGuard products as they become available.